Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the biggest geopolitical shifts happening right now in Northern Europe, a development that experts say could reshape the entire balance of power in the Baltic region. The situation has escalated quickly, and with NATO's latest moves, many analysts believe Russia's strategic position in the Baltic Sea has taken a massive hit. So let's break everything down in clear, simple terms and explore why many are saying that NATO may have just sealed Russia's fate in the Baltic region. The Baltic Sea has always been one of the most important military and economic corridors in Europe. For Russia, it is a vital gateway to the wider world. It is where the Russian Navy's Baltic Fleet operates, where crucial shipping routes pass, and where Russia maintains sensitive infrastructure. But over the last few years, and especially in recent months, the balance of power here has shifted dramatically. NATO now controls almost the entire coastline around the Baltic Sea. This is a situation Russia has feared for decades, and now it is reality. The first major blow to Russia came when Finland joined NATO. Finland shares an incredibly long border with Russia, and for decades remained militarily non-aligned. Russia always counted on Finland staying out of NATO so it could keep the alliance at a distance. But the invasion of Ukraine changed everything. Finland joined NATO with one of the strongest armies in Europe, instantly transforming the northern flank of the alliance. This move alone put massive pressure on Russia's military planning, but the real shock came when Sweden followed. Sweden's entry into NATO completed what many call the NATO ring around the Baltic Sea. Before this, Sweden and Finland acted as buffer states. Their neutrality gave Russia some breathing room, but now the Baltic Sea is almost a NATO lake. Russia retains only a small portion of coastline near St. Petersburg and the heavily militarized Kaliningrad region. Practically everything else is under full NATO protection. For Moscow, this is a nightmare scenario. NATO didn't stop there. Once Sweden and Finland joined, the alliance rapidly expanded joint exercises, established new defense corridors, and positioned forces strategically along the Baltic. These steps weren't random. They were designed to send a clear message. The Baltic Sea is now one of the most fortified and closely watched regions on Earth. NATO surveillance systems, maritime patrols, anti-submarine technologies, and rapid response units now operate in a coordinated network that Russia can no longer ignore. One of the most important developments is the creation of integrated defense lines across the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. These countries have always felt vulnerable due to their small size and proximity to Russia. But now NATO has deployed thousands of additional troops, advanced air defenses, and rapid deployment brigades. The Baltic states are no longer isolated or exposed. They are connected to Finland in the north and Poland in the south through a unified security architecture. For Russia, breaking through this chain is nearly impossible without provoking a full NATO response. Another key factor is the Suwałki Gap, a narrow stretch of land between Poland and Lithuania. It has long been seen as the weakest link in NATO's eastern border, a spot Russia could target to cut off the Baltic states from the rest of the alliance. But with Sweden and Finland now part of NATO, the Suwałki Gap is no longer the alliance's single point of vulnerability. NATO now has land, air, and naval routes that make reinforcement far easier and faster. Russia can no longer rely on exploiting that gap. The strategic advantage has shifted. NATO has also upgraded its naval presence throughout the region in ways Russia did not expect. The alliance now conducts coordinated Baltic Sea patrols with warships from multiple member states, creating a constant security umbrella. Sweden brings cutting-edge submarines and one of the most advanced air forces in Europe. Finland contributes powerful artillery and long-range defense systems. The Baltic states provide critical bases, radar, and intelligence infrastructure. And Poland, with its rapidly growing military, acts as a formidable anchor on the southern flank. Russia's Baltic Fleet, once a key symbol of its power, now finds itself surrounded, tracked, and outmatched. Kaliningrad, which Russia once saw as an unsinkable fortress, is now under intense strategic pressure. For years, Russia placed missiles, nuclear capable systems, and tens of thousands of troops there to intimidate NATO. But the expanded NATO presence means Kaliningrad is now encircled from every direction. In the event of any conflict, Russia would struggle to resupply it. This region, once a strategic advantage, has become a vulnerability Moscow cannot easily fix. Beyond the military aspect, NATO's actions have also reshaped economic and energy dynamics in the Baltic Sea. Major underwater infrastructure, gas pipelines, communication cables, power connections, has become a major focus. NATO now monitors these assets closely due to increasing concerns about sabotage and covert Russian operations. This surveillance makes it harder for Russia to conduct any undersea activity without immediate detection. The alliance has invested heavily in sensors, drones, maritime surveillance aircraft, and satellite tracking. Russia's ability to operate quietly below the surface has been drastically reduced. NATO's political unity in the region has also strengthened over time. Countries like Denmark, Norway, Poland, and the Baltic states have dramatically increased defense budgets, modernized fleets, and coordinated strategies. Even Germany, which had long maintained cautious relations with Russia, is now firmly aligned with NATO's security posture. This growing unity means Russia faces a consolidated front rather than divided states. Every move Moscow makes is now evaluated through a joint NATO lens, leaving Russia with fewer opportunities to exploit disagreements or diplomatic openings. Russia has tried to respond, but its options are limited. Its military is deeply tied up in Ukraine, with heavy losses and major logistical challenges. Its navy in the Baltic Sea is outdated compared to NATO fleets. Its economy is under strain from sanctions, reducing its ability to modernize equipment or expand its forces. Russia is discovering that threatening NATO is far harder today than it was a decade ago. The alliance is stronger, more prepared, and more connected. At the same time, Finland and Sweden bring not only military power but also world-class intelligence capabilities. Their advanced radar systems and long-range sensors can detect movements deep inside Russian territory. This has dramatically improved NATO's awareness. Moves that Russia once made secretly are now observed in real time. This intelligence advantage shapes NATO strategies and limits Russia's ability to surprise the alliance. One of the most overlooked impacts of this shift is on Russia's internal military planning. For decades, Russian military doctrine relied on quickly overwhelming neighboring states before NATO could react. That strategy is now outdated. NATO's expanded footprint ensures immediate and automatic reinforcement. Any aggression in the Baltic would instantly trigger a multinational response. Russia is now forced to reconsider its entire regional strategy at a time when its military resources are stretched thin. Another major issue for Russia is psychological. Moscow has long used intimidation tactics to influence the Baltic states. Cyber attacks, airspace violations, propaganda, and aggressive posturing. But these tactics are losing effectiveness. NATO's presence gives these countries confidence and resilience. Instead of being afraid, they are now pushing back with stronger policies and stronger defenses. The fear factor that Russia once relied on is fading. Perhaps the biggest consequence of all is that Russia has lost control of regional influence. Where it once played a major role in shaping Baltic politics, economics, and security considerations, it now finds itself isolated. NATO countries regularly conduct joint policymaking, while Russia is left outside, observing but unable to influence outcomes. The strategic balance is not merely shifting, it has already shifted. This doesn't mean Russia will give up easily. Moscow still has powerful assets in the region, including missile systems in Kaliningrad, cyber capabilities, and a willingness to engage in unconventional tactics. But the structural advantage has turned decisively in NATO's favor. The alliance's integrated defenses, unified forces, expanded membership, and modern technologies make it extremely difficult for Russia to regain lost ground. Another important aspect is that NATO's moves are not just defensive, they are strategic. The alliance is not aiming to provoke conflict, but to prevent it. By strengthening the Baltic region to this degree, NATO is effectively removing the temptation for Russia to launch any sudden offensive. The message is clear: aggression will fail. This deterrence creates stability, and stability is exactly what Russia does not want NATO to have. Looking at all of these developments together, one thing becomes clear. The Baltic Sea is no longer a contested space. It is a NATO-dominated region with overwhelming military, intelligence, economic, and political advantages. Russia's once ambitious plans for influence, dominance, or expansion in the Baltic region are now nearly impossible. NATO has closed the door firmly. The alliance has not only responded to Russia's actions in Ukraine, but has redefined the regional balance of power in a way that Moscow cannot easily reverse. In the bigger picture, this shift sends a warning to Russia. The consequences of aggressive behavior extend far beyond the battlefield. Russia expected NATO to weaken. Instead, NATO expanded. Russia expected divisions. Instead, NATO found unity. Russia expected fear. Instead, NATO strengthened defenses. These miscalculations are now shaping Russia's fate in the Baltic region and potentially shaping its future strategic decisions. The geopolitical map of Northern Europe has changed permanently. The Baltic Sea has become the front line of a new era, an era where NATO holds overwhelming control and Russia faces major strategic limitations. Whether Russia accepts this reality or tries to challenge it will determine the next chapter in regional stability. But for now, one thing is undeniable. NATO's latest actions have fundamentally altered the balance of power, and many experts agree that Russia's fate in the Baltic region may already be sealed. If you want, I can also generate the description, tags, image prompts, and final thumbnail prompt like before.